Hey guys, how's it going? Well, we have a Quadrajet in front of us. You know what that means? It's time for another Quadrajet video. It's been quite a long time since I've done a Quadrajet video. But as I go through and get messages and reply to messages and questions and things like that from a lot of nice people that have watched these videos on these Quadrajets, I have kind of taken note of some things that are asked a lot, and then that gives me an idea for a video. So that's the case here. I've got a little something I want to show you. This is my one of my favorite Quadrajets here in front of me. I've used this as a teaching aid before. This is a late 70s Pontiac 400 specific Quadrajet, and you know that because any of you who own Pontiac V8s of that era, you'll know that's the vent right there, that specially designed vent that only goes into either the bottom of a Trans Am scoop, or I think some of these also had an air cleaner, just a regular air cleaner that had the correct hole in it for that inside the where the filter is, so it got filtered air. That's just basically a vent. But anyway, that said, that's not that important. What I want to talk about is these carburetors. It's kind of annoying me. These carburetors have I got a neighbor back here who's got some kind of a supercharged weed eater. These carburetors have a secondary lockout tab, but just about all these later Quadrajets have this, and I'll show you where it's at. One little pointer. If you turn and come around to the passenger side of the carburetor, of course you'll be looking across your engine, but if you look down on the bottom down here, you see that guy right there? Get me a pointer out. Let the camera kind of do its thing. You see that? Now, that looks like it may be just one piece, but it's not actually. What's going on, what you're looking at is, this is the end of the secondary throttle blade shaft. That's the shaft that the throttle blades on the bottom down here on the base plate are attached to, and then you got a little pin right here. And then this is just a little piece of linkage that is connected by hook and by crook to the choke, and when the choke is closed like this one is, it drops down right there, and the idea is to prevent the driver from pushing the accelerator to the floor and opening up or attempting to open up the 4-barrel when it's cold, because they interpret the choke being on as a cold engine. So that's what's going on there. And the reason it's, I know some people may get a little annoyed about that and think, well, they're just trying to kill my good time and be a killjoy. But what they're trying to do is they were trying to prevent the, what's going to happen is if you got a cold engine, a lot of times if you ever have one of these that doesn't have this and you try to punch it, it'll kind of bog, and it's just too cold to atomize or keep the fuel in suspension, whatever the case may be, and it just kind of may stumble and bog. And they're trying to avoid that. They wanted this thing to work as well as possible, and they work very well. And a lot of times it's not until people have started monkeying with these over the years that they stop working well. I like to say this, but it's true, I've driven several of these with a 4-barrel on them, and they are a very nice carburetor, a very good working carburetor, until somebody fucks with them. So if you see that, don't think that that's just something just to take away your fun and your horsepower. It's really not a bad idea. Now, this can be removed if you, let me set the carburetor kind of up on its side a little bit. If you just don't want it, that's understandable. But you need to come back under here. You'll have to take the choke housing off and pull that out, that choke housing away, and then you've got where that thing kind of pivots right there. And this camera's kind of not too happy with this, but I'm going to try to manipulate this a little bit, just kind of show you what's going on there. And see, this normally when the choke opens, it's going to drop away like that, and it stays dropped away, and then when the choke closes again, it's going to kind of, normally it should. That was a little sticky, but anyway, it's free to move it. Anyway, you can see that with that thing locked there, I have to do this one-handed, but with that thing in place, I can't push the secondaries open. If I drop it out, drop it away, there they go. I got the carburetor sitting on the table, but so yeah, that's what that is, and I don't know that many people know about that, but those things do exist, and I've, you know, like I said, they work well, but when they stop working well is if you have problems with your choke, and the choke is, especially if the choke's out of adjustment, if the choke is adjusted so it's too tight, meaning the spring down here is turned so the plate tries to stay too far closed all the time, then that thing will just stay where, you know, in its cold position, and you won't ever have a 4-barrel. So you may pull your hair out thinking, well, you know, just I've worked on this and I just don't know what's going on. So, you know, the thing about these carburetors, I have to reiterate that, is that, you know, there's a few things really on this side of the carburetor that need to work together. You know, it's almost like the Trinity. You know, you got about 3 things that need to happen at the right time and in the right adjustment. Number 1, you need to have a choke that opens up the proper amount and works and doesn't hold closed, because if it holds closed, it won't even run right. It'll just run like crap anyway. You need to have a choke pull off that is adjusted and is working. That means that when that's connected right to that outlet right there, that vacuum port. So this thing, you know, they're easy to test. If you have one of those on handheld vacuum pumps like I do, they're easy to find those anywhere. You know, you can hook it to that and just pump it a little bit, and that thing should draw in. That tells you it's working. So that needs to happen, and then you need to have your air door adjusted the right, you know, I've detailed how to do that. Just got a little spring adjustment in here. It's right, where's this one at? This one is same place they always are. Really, is this one? No, it's right there. There it is. Got that screw right there. So, but anyway, showed you how to do that, I believe. So, and then of course some of these have a rear pull off, and I've been asked that, why do they have, some of these have a front and a rear pull off? Well, the answer is it's because General Motors wanted it to have one. Why you think? I'm only kidding. That's a good question. Now, normally it's just a kind of a, you know, in the late 70s, GM was trying to get a real firmer grip on kind of starting on emissions and choke operation. They wanted greater control over choke operation. This is a hot air choke. You can tell that by the port for it up here. There's no electrical connector. So anyway, it just gave them more, I guess you could say, it gave them more control over the choke operation. But they all, anyway, like I said, they all need to be working, and you know, there's a lot of resources on how to adjust these, and you know, the manuals on these carburetors. If you ever get a kit, they go through chapter and verse about how to set the choke, you know, what measurements to take, like how far away from the rear wall it should be when it's all the way cold and closed, you know, distances between this, so suffice to say, without me going into a long dissertation about it, there's plenty of resources per each carburetor. I wonder if that guy's got a lawnmower. He's been out there running that weed whacker. Wide open. I hope it doesn't blow up. So anyway, a lot of resources on these. So anyway, I'm glad to have advised all of y'all about these carburetors. I keep getting the messages that say that you've got your choke working, you've got your bog relieved on these. So I'm really glad of that. These things got a stigma for a long time that they just, you know, people started hating them But there again, like I said, Rochester knew what they were doing when they put these carburetors together. You know, they just work really well, but you have to follow the rules on them. You have to, you know, I'm not trying to be a jerk by saying this way, but when it comes down to a competition between the Rochester carburetor engineers and the redneck engineers, I can tell you who did a better job of it. So when you start taking levers off and you start loosening screws and taking this and bending that and wiring this closed and wiring this open and yeah, because you know better, well, I don't think you know better. So glad to help you though. I don't want anybody to suffer with these carburetors. I want you all to have a good time with them because they're a really nice carburetor and they sound great. And hopefully one day this carburetor will get rebuilt and put back on an engine worthy of it. This is one of my keeper carburetors. I've got several parts carburetors. I've got a lot of like 305 carburetors and some just pedestrian 350 Chevy carburetors and a couple electronic versions. And the keepers though that I have is this one. I've got an Oldsmobile 455 carburetor for a 70 Oldsmobile, which is absolutely going to keep it because that was one used on a Riviera and a Grand Sport and stuff like that. And may have one more somewhere. I've got a couple 3 Buick carburetors that are not 800 versions. I checked them. So anyway, guys, I appreciate it. Thank you for the support. And you know, I continue to have people randomly post comments on these videos and they still say the same thing. They say you talk too much and you should just get to it and you ramble, and I can't sit through this video. Well, you know, that if you can't sit through a video, if you don't have the patience to listen to somebody talk, then you're just a poor student. You know, you were probably the guy that sat in school when you were a kid, and instead of listening to the teacher, you drew on your notebook, or you slept, or you didn't even come to class, or you daydreamed out the window. You know, that's fine. I'm not judging somebody, but if you want to know something, you gotta listen. So thanks for listening, and we will see you down the road. Thanks for watching.